It's a well-known fact that early queen attacks are very annoying. All black can do upon countering one is to defend and develop, which completely sucks the fun out of the opening. But today, that changes. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Fredericksburg Gambit. So, what exactly is the Fredericksburg Gambit? Well, I'll show you. Of course, we start with e4, e5, queen h5. This is a refutation to an early queen attack. And so knight c6, just defending the pawn. And everybody here plays bishop c4 thinking that you are a complete dumbass and that you will blunder this mate, like 60% of people have done here. However, instead you're going to go g6, now queen f3, and instead of something normal like knight f6 or even queen f6, no. You're going to push f5. And this actually has a decent amount of games played, surprisingly. 81,000. And the win rate is relatively high, too. And you'll notice that most people actually will take this pawn. And so when they take it, it is already -1, meaning that we're up about 80 centipawns. It is actually pretty great, because now knight to d4, and the most common move here is queen to d5. And all of a sudden, we are just massively winning, -2.5. Well, why is that? I mean, we can't just fork him, that doesn't make any sense. Because then we get mated if we try to take the rook. Doesn't make any sense. Well, I'll show you. Queen to e7 is defending the checkmate, and it's also simultaneously defending this pawn. And yes, it says queen f6 was better, but really they're the same. And it actually says the best move for him is to allow this fork to happen. If you can see from the best move arrow indicator. But instead, most people will play knight to a3. We already have a 61% win rate here. So just c6, queen in a5, b6, and we just keep pushing upwards with the pawns. And you'll notice that we're actually threatening a fork here, and this knight has no real good moves. And moreover, we just have such a giant center here that there's not much you can do about it. Now, most people here play... actually, we don't know. We don't know what people play here, because there's aren't any games like this, but still. Queen a5 is what I think people would play to try to get away from danger. At least that's the best move, according to Stockfish. And here, you are just deflecting the knight away from this fork. I would assume most people would try to go for a counterattack here. Then you just intermezzo, you win the knight, and you're going to be doing relatively well there. But what if your opponent decides to play queen back to d3 instead of queen to d5, which also defends this fork? Well, now d5, everybody goes bishop b3 here. You take on f5, which is attacking this queen, right? And so, if this bishop wasn't here to defend this fork, then it would actually be a skewer, and you'd be winning everything, and you'd just be doing very well. But whatever. So queen e3 is a relatively common move here. Queen e7. And now the most common move here is knight to f3. It's not necessarily too much more common than knight to a3, which is the other move, but we already have a 90% win rate there. It just says nothing. Don't worry about that. So look, knight f3, and now bishop h6, and this is the only line in which we are actually winning now. Because now queen to c3 is basically forced, otherwise he loses the queen. And bishop to e4, right, which is just putting pressure on the knight, and after takes, we can take here, and you'll start to notice that this queen doesn't actually have too many squares left. I mean, it has here, it has here, and it has here, and it can take here or two, but there's really not very much left for him, and like if he was to try to save the queen somewhere, this is actually going to be mate in 2 now, because we could just do something like this, and now we're going to have this nice little checkmate. And so it says the best thing for him to do is to intermezzo, right? Then we go here, and it wants him to sacrifice a bishop, but we're not even going to take here. We just play king f7, and it just wants him to try to trade off the queens, and here we are just going to be winning a bishop. And of course, that is just going to be very much winning. And so the other move that is very common that we have not yet covered is this strange move, queen to d1, which covers this fork and honestly isn't too bad for white. Well, now d5, bishop b3, you take on f5, you have equal material, you have a massive center. I mean, it's hard to imagine that you're not winning here. It's just hard to imagine. And so now, pawn to c3 is the most common move. And here, you really are winning because it's -3 now. To be precise, it's about 280 centipawns, but still. So you take, he'll take back with the queen most of the time. I mean, if he takes back with the pawn, then you just have this, and you're just going to build up in his face, and there's not going to be much for him. Oops. Okay, there we are. Accidentally hit the button there. But here, you're still going to play bishop d3. He's going to take on b7 most of the time, I would imagine. I mean, there are only 6 games in the database, so who knows? Maybe that's just a skewed sample, but still. Takes on b7, and now knight to e7, which removes this square from the queen, and if knight f3, for example, which is played in the only game that we actually have from this position, which is really not worth much, because it's one game. But we just play bishop g7, and there's actually not much that white can do here. I mean, I don't even really have to show you the rest of this. I still will anyways, because who knows, maybe there are some people in the crowd who could not really finish the game from this position, but still. If king d1, which is the best move, trying to step off of the e-file, just play a5. If queen to e3, trying to get the queen back, then you just castle. And, you know, I assumed that white would try to get some development with knight to a3, but now you can actually sacrifice the rook. And if he takes, you have queen to f8, right? And he has to sack the pawn to try to prolong the game. Here I'd wanted him to sack the queen to prolong it, but still, here it's just mate in 2. It's just mate. He has to sacrifice material to untangle, and there's not much he can do here. It's just not good. Now, we've only covered the accepted variations thus far, and so I think we could benefit from showing what happens when he tries to decline it. This does only happen 2% of the time, though, so I imagine this won't be too useful. So here, queen d1, of course, trying to cover the fork. You take. If he takes back, then it's going to be a nice little fork here, and thankfully that is played 63% of the time. And so he tries to intermezzo, you go back, you're here, you win in a bishop, and there's just nothing that white can really do about it. And there is another way to decline it. In fact, there are two more ways to decline it. Knight to e2 is the solid way of declining it, right? As you can see, he maintains his advantage here quite nicely. And so here it's knight f6, and now people will still most commonly take the pawn. As you can see, that is not the best idea if you're just looking on the eval bar, but here's why. d5, you're kicking him out. He goes to b5, you take, he takes, you take back. You have a very massive center. There's not much he can do about it. I mean, if something like d3, for example, just play bishop b4 check, I'd assume most people would block with the pawn since they want to kick you out. Here, I'd assume most people would still want to kick you. You just go to b6, you're winning, you're going to have a lot of pressure here. You have ideas of going for a pawn break along here, and there's just not much that white can really do here. Not every line is a trap, sorry. So e4, e5, queen h5, whatever, you know the drill. For this position is, you'd still play d3 after that knight e2 declination, of course. And so f4 here is just taking away a lot of squares for the queen. If you notice, the piece, his pawn blocks here, his pawn blocks here, his knight blocks here, this pawn gets here, this pawn gets here, this knight gets here, this knight gets here. There is actually nowhere for him to go, which I find very, very nice. And whenever there is something like this, you have to look for a queen trap, don't you? And so here, knight b4 just threatens a nice little fork. And so now d5, and if e takes d5, of course, you just go here, the queen is trapped. And the best move is to play a3, and then you just kick him out, and you're going to have a very, very large center. This pawn formation is very strong. He has no way to get this bishop out. It's kind of useless. And this is not just a beginner trap. I mean, early queen openings are, by definition, beginner traps, but as you can see, not only beginners will fall for this. If you allow this to load, you'll see that a 2500 actually fell for this. And so this is how the game went. I suppose we should see it from the black perspective. Allow me to flip the board. Here, bishop c4, g6, queen f3, f5. He took knight to d4, and he played queen to d5, which is the variation that we went over. And instead of playing queen to e7 like we were talking about, he plays queen to f6. This is equally good. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Now after f takes g6, our friend on the way GM took back. He played bishop b3 because he wanted to the fork. c6, and queen to e4 was played. d5, he just kept relentlessly kicking him out. Queen to e3, bishop to h6, just really kicking the queen around. And here, white is really under a lot of pressure here, and there's not much he can do about it. So knight to e7, I mean, look at this. There are three pieces that black does not have in the attack, right? You know, unless you count the king, in which case you're an idiot, but still. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that white does not have in the attack. Actually, you could argue there are 6. You could argue there are 6, and you could argue that this queen is only a detriment to white's position. And there is just not much that he has here. Hence why it's -4 already. And so knight e2, he castled, which actually threatens a mate here. I mean, obviously, if he takes, then this is just mate. in a couple moves. You can see why. I mean, it's recommending that you sacrifice the queen, so obviously can't be too good. But still. Rook f1, he does actually defend this. And you take back. He took again. Knight f5 and d3. And here he checked him, just trying to win the bishop here. And so here, Jahantex, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, decided to defend the bishop with king to d1. And now bishop g4 check, and the best move is actually to sacrifice the bishop by moving the king away from the defense of it. But, I mean, no human plays that. So f3, and he actually sacrificed the knight. I don't know if he studied this beforehand or whatnot, but still. Now h3, knight d4 check. He moved, and this was mate. And no, this was not a bullet game. This was a blitz game. And they were surprisingly close on time as well. And so that's basically it. This just proves that this is a good opening, and I hope that you are willing to study this. You can click the link in the description if you want to get the study for this. This has been Blundered Games, signing off.